A lot of people always ask me, what lure do I use? What's the best lure to catch a big fish? Should I be using this lure? Is it too heavy? Is it too light? Well, this video is about the basics. Where did it start for me? The fundamentals of lure fishing. Now, everything I say here isn't gospel, but it's everything that's helped me learn over the years. So if you are one of those people that have come up to me and said, I want to catch big fish, tune into this video, find out the minor details, and this might help you catch a lot more fish. Now, let's tell you a little story. When I was younger, in my teens, I used to bait fish. I seen loads of people lure fishing and I thought, I want a bit of that. I went down to my local tackle shop, spoke to the guys behind the till, asked for some tips, and off I went. I didn't start with bass. Bass came along throughout my fishing journey. Brass fishing is where I started. Now for me, brass fishing simplifies everything. It puts the fundamentals of lure fishing into place, and when you get them right, that's when you can go off and start catching other fish. Brass fishing is absolutely perfect for understanding what your lure's doing, understanding the behavior of your lure, the difference between the lure touching the bottom and a fish hitting it, and all of that ties up as one to becoming good at lure fishing, I guess. Now, this is the kind of lure that I started with. Open J-hook on a jig head and a small soft plastic. You're probably thinking, that's not going to catch me a big fish. But this video is not about big fish. This is about the fundamentals and getting it right. That lure has actually caught me big fish. It's caught me many fish. But it's this little lure that got it started for me. A small, brownie coloured soft plastic. Again, you don't have to use that colour. And a little jig head. I've probably gone through hundreds of these from losing them on the bottom, just trying to get it right. But understanding the lure in the water to catch fish is where it all started. Now, when I was a young gun, I used to just love to explore. Places like this on our coast are perfect places to explore, drop your lures deep down and just work them in and around the nooks and crannies. Now, if you're watching this and you're a youngster, I would recommend you come down to a place like this with your parents. I don't recommend coming to this exact spot, but this is what I like to look for. Walking all the way along the cliffs, looking down, bird's eye view, and just finding crannies and rocks like this where I can work my soft plastics close to the bottom and hunt for fish like brass, pollock, maybe the occasional bass, mackerel, and things like that, because everything takes a soft plastic. Now, there are probably loads of places all the way around the cliffs just like this, and I know there is, and I love to just get my bag on, a bag of soft plastics, a bag of jig eggs, some spare terminals, and just go hunting for these places. So if you are watching this and you do live somewhere else that's not in Jersey, these are the kind of honey holes that I like to fish. And this is where it started for me, right in this particular gully. Beautiful fish. Now, as you've probably just seen, just caught my first little fish there. Beautiful colour, kind of like yellow. And what I'm doing, like I used to, is I used to just cast out, let it go to the bottom, let some line off, just make sure the bow of my line totally cuts off, reel into it, and then all I'm doing is just tapping, understanding the feel of my lure on the bottom. Now usually when it hits the bottom, you kind of get that curl of your braid, especially when you're tight on it. And then just a couple of little flicks. Now if there wasn't enough weight on your lure, it'd be really hard to get the feel, and that's why I'm saying it's so much better to have the right weighted lure or jig head for your rod and for the lure. And then I'm just tapping away, making sure that I'm slowly tightening up on the reel every time I retrieve it. There you go, I'm just getting bites again. Tiny bites, there you go, you can see them. Just little taps, just got to watch out because there's a big ledge down there. So yeah, just cast out nice and easy. This is just how it started for me. So easy, but just learning the weight of the lure. All of the other stuff will come after it. But if you're new to fishing, this is a perfect way to start. Small soft plastics, getting it right, and just having some fun. And as you can see on my rod tip there, I'm getting really small hits there. The difference between the lure just sitting on the bottom and a fish taking it. Just love this kind of fishing. Super easy, nice and chilled, just targeting fish in and around, making sure everything is right. And once this is fine-tuned, you can take it to casting further, bringing it in slower, bringing it in faster. Now I've just cast a little bit further this time, so now I've got a bow of line going out to my lure. I know that it's on the bottom because when I leave it, the line kind of drops down vertically below the rod tip. So I've just lost 2 lures, but the reason for that was I was using a 10-gram jig head, very similar to this. Now it was getting to the bottom perfectly, but when it was on the bottom, it was getting snagged up and I was just losing a little feel of the lure as it was on the bottom. It's not a bad thing to have a light head. Sometimes it works perfect. But in this particular zone, there's big boulders on the bottom. It's falling beneath the cracks and I'm just not feeling it. So what I've done is I've just upped the ante, gone to 12.5. 2.5 grams of weight probably doesn't sound too much. When you want a feel of the lure and you're losing loads of stuff, just upping it up a tiny bit can make all the difference. So it's about chopping and changing the lure weight size. Obviously don't go too big, you want a kind of balance, if that makes sense. Nothing too heavy, nothing too light. A nice feel of the lure, so you can feel it bumping on the bottom and not falling between cracks. I hope that makes sense. So we've just upped it up a little bit. Same lure size, just a different weight. I just love casting along these rocky outcrops. You can see the lighter rock just in here. That's a ledge that drops off into the deeper stuff. Now when the sun starts to come up, I would usually recommend putting some polarized glasses on so you can see straight down. Doesn't have to be an expensive pair. I've got a cheap pair because I go through them quite a lot. And all I'm doing is I'm just tapping it parallel with this rock face, hoping there's going to be a fish tucked in underneath. When I used to fish here back in the day, many moons ago, that's where the fish used to be. Now if you're usually fishing from above like I was before, sometimes when you're bringing your lure up, it can get hung and stuck on that ledge or any ledge that you're kind of fishing, so always watch out for overhangs. Now with that change of the weighted jig head, I can feel everything now. I've not lost the lure since. Kind of a little bit of proof in the pudding on why to just up it a tiny bit if you don't get that feel or you're losing your lures a little bit too much. I've gone for a longer cast this time, so I've winded in my slack. Sometimes I like to hold it sideways so I can see my braid, and at the moment it's falling, you can see it, but then once the braid hits the bottom, it will kind of just drop off like so. That's when you know you're on the bottom. Reel up the slack and just tap away. And I can actually feel my lure this time. Hitting the bottom. And this is why it's so important to understand the difference between hitting the bottom, the feel of your lure, and then a fish. So I know I've spoke a lot about in this video the use of a small open J hook on a soft plastic. Now this is a great starter. As I was saying before, you can always change the size of your jig head to go a little bit heavier, just to make sure that you get the feel on the lure itself. Very easy to change over. Just a quick push onto it and you have it back again. Now these kind of lures took up most of the sessions when I first started. Fishing it simple, tapping it off the bottom, making sure I've always got a little bit of tension on my line or on my braid to make sure I have a feel of the lure. Tap, 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 bang. But I had to up my game a little bit. And there are other techniques which I learned along my fishing journey which changed from an open J hook, and that was weedless. Now there are so many different varieties of weedless lures. This one is a fake fish minnow, a weighted front, and a hook that's buried within the lure, like so. Areas where a smaller lure can get stuck in the crannies and you can't really get a feel of it. Perfect for many situations, and I've caught so many big fish or just fish in general on these. Slowly just bringing this along the bottom. Fish slammed it. Beautifully coloured fish, really nice. That's what I love about this fishing. Very close quarters, just touching it up along the bottom, getting a feel of the lure. I could feel my lure tapping along the bottom, and then all of a sudden I had a couple of like bigger, more ferocious kind of takes. I let it sit on the bottom and bang, and there we go. Another fish. But also another method is weedless Texas. A rolling weight on the front, a weedless hook, usually with a twist lock in the front, and this just fishes the lure straight onto the bottom, weedless as always, but with the weight that can slide up and down. Another option which I started using when I was young. So there's three different methods there: the open J hook, the total weedless, and then also the Texas rig. All three perfect for the situation, for learning, but all three perfect ways to learn to get the feel of the lure on the bottom, the vibration of the lure, picking it up on your rod tip, but also catching fish in three different ways. A really good way to start your fishing and getting those three simple basics under your belt. The feel of the lure, the weight of the lure, and the difference between a fish taking it and your lure hitting the bottom. Now what I've done is I've just come for a little walk, little mooch, just so I can see these kind of areas as the tide's dropping. Again, very good to use polarized. You can see a lot more when you have these on, but in this particular area you can see boulders in this lighter patch, and then it drops down into some deeper area. I can see some bigger boulders in that area as well. Lovely little area to catch fish, and it's, you know, something that people should do a lot, not just turn up at marks, go and have a little hunt around and have a little look around to places and what they look like. And this is a perfect area to catch wrasse, have a little play, knock some soft plastics in and around all of these little areas. Always be safe in these kind of places. Obviously when the tide's coming up, all of this is going to wash in. If there's big swell, you're going to get that white water chaos all around this area. But today is a perfect day to show you, in a perfect place to kind of come and have a look. And yeah, this just smells of wrasse. It just smells of fish to me. Loads of places for the ambush, loads of kind of gullies and that, loads of places you can teabag a lure in and around in deeper areas. Absolutely perfect. It always pays to come and have a look at areas before you come and fish at them. Tapping away on the rod. Well, there we go. Again, not big at all. Just smoked me. Came out of a little crack and see my lure and then just smashed it.
And all I'm doing is just very subtly just bringing it along the bottom, and when I feel the wrasse come in and hit it, which is like a constant tap, 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 I just let it sit on the bottom. There you go. Now, another really thing to get wrong at the very start is go into your tackle shop, buying just a normal pier kind of shore rod, which is okay for mackerel fishing with feathers, a little bit of bottom fishing, but I do see a lot of people just using this kind of rod for this kind of fishing, lure fishing, very touch and go kind of stuff. With this rod that I have, it's an 8 to 35 gram rod. The tip is kind of soft. This is a fast action rod, and that means it's very tippy. You get a lot of action through the top of the rod, and it doesn't bend all the way through the middle of the rod. Now, if you've got a rod that is very thick and you're trying to flick a small lure like so, you are not going to feel it in the tip or in the rod altogether, which means you're going to miss bites, you're not going to get the feel of the lure, and I think this is very key to your fishing journey at the very start, the basics. The good old saying goes, horses for courses, having a rod which is ready for the particular fishing you're doing. Now, I'm lucky that this rod can have a feel with this, with something weedless as well, but also with my bigger soft plastic, which is weedless. So having a rod with the right rod tip, the right casting weight range for the lures that you're using really does help with your fishing at the very start. It doesn't mean go out and buy something expensive, it just means fishing the lures to the right weight and casting weight of your rod to get the best feel of the lure and to have the most fun.